But guys, if you're not paying your taxes, it's not something you'd be like, oh, I just don't pay them. The government gets theirs. Hence, that's why it's called the IRS.
Do you want to hear something funny about that? So at Door to Door Con, and this is the longest that I've ever met someone that had gone without filing their tax returns. Will you please take a guess?
Tony Lee?
No, I'm not saying names. I'm not saying names. I'm just saying how long. How long it's been
8
since...
years? I don't know, 10 years? 20 years?
30 years.
Never paid taxes.
I met someone at Door to Door Con.
What?
This past year, just recently, who hadn't filed a tax return in 30 years.
And they just are living dark?
I have no idea. I think that, like, okay, one, people don't know, and so it's the fear of not knowing that keeps them from not doing it.
That's just a common thing in life.
Right?
Hi everybody, this is Sam Taggart, and I'm here with the Brady Slack with DDD Tax Strategies, and we are going to be diving in on some money stuff and selling. So before I do that, if you guys haven't got your ticket to the Sales Summit coming up, or a deep dive coming up, or boot camp, or check out our events on our website or our online training platform. I know a lot of the guys are training for summer and getting everybody ramped up, getting your teams ramped up. We do online training for solar, roofing, pest, alarms, and a lot of people are benefiting from, the sales skills that they can get from that, selling more. So you guys deserve to sell at the highest level, so make sure you're getting the best training. And we're going to dive in. So Brady and I have worked together for, I don't know, 2 years. Yeah, a couple years now. And I'm telling you, I've been through 4 accountants now, and I'm not planning on switching. So that should say a lot to actually have my own accountant on this podcast and be happy, because a lot of people are very frustrated with their accounting, and if you're in first year, I remember I'm gonna tell a story. so Brady focuses on, and we did a podcast a while back, so we're gonna make this one a little different, but he focuses on the door-to-door space and helping with tax, bookkeeping, and accounting. So, he's helped from reps all the way up to business owners, including companies like us. And this one's out for all those people that are me. When I was 18, I sold. So I sold right out of high school, and I made like 20-something grand. And, I did pretty good as an 18-year-old kid, right? And I go on my service mission, and I was like, see ya. And a year into my mission, my dad's like, hey, you forgot to pay your taxes. I keep getting these letters that are saying you haven't filed your taxes. And I was like, well, what's that? He's like, well, when you make money and you're a 1099.
Well, same thing for me. I didn't file a tax return by myself till I think I was 21, 22.
Yeah, it was like,
I didn't know.
I was making money. And when I was in high school, I just got paid cash. So I never had a job. So I didn't even know. Anyway, so from Argentina, I'm over here sending forms and trying to get paid. And, it was a whole thing. So, but guys, if you're not paying your taxes, it's not something you'd be like, oh, I just don't pay them. The government gets theirs. Hence, that's why it's called the IRS.
Do you want to hear something funny about that? So at Door to Door Con, and this is the longest that I've ever met someone that had gone without filing their tax returns. Will you please take a guess?
Tony Lee?
No, I'm not saying names. I'm not saying names. I'm just saying how long. How long it's been
8 years? I don't know, 10 years? 20 years?
30 years.
Never paid taxes.
I met someone at Door to Door Con.
What?
This past year, just recently, who hadn't filed a tax return in 30 years.
And they just are living dark?
I have no idea. I think that, okay, one, people don't know, and so it's the fear of not knowing that keeps them from not doing it.
That's just a common thing in life.
Right? And I think in the door-to-door industry it happens a lot too, because you'll get guys who go make more money than they've ever made before, than their mom and dad have ever made before. It's a great opportunity, but they have no idea what they're doing. And so then they go to file their taxes because they know they're supposed to, right? But because they don't know what they're doing, they go to file their taxes and they see this huge amount of money that they owe after they've maybe already spent all that money, and they get scared. So they might file that tax return, or they might just not even file the tax return because they don't want to have to pay it, and they just keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. Like at the door-to-door summer event, at every single event.
Oh, yeah, because he came on tour with us last summer.
At every single event, I had at least one person come up to me and say that they had not filed at least 2 years of taxes.
Jeez.
At every event. We went eight cities?
Yeah.
9 cities, 9 events?
9 events.
Yeah, there was at least one person at every event that hadn't filed a tax return. Anyways, you said that, so that made me think of that.
Okay, this is an interesting question. Okay. I don't know if you can say this. So, in door-to-door sales, I constantly find, oh, dude, yeah, I made like 400 grand, I made like 300 grand. He's the one that knows how much they actually make because he files their taxes. And so it's like, there's oh, I sold 100, and I've had so many times where I have to call reps out and I'm like, no, show me the stats, show me the numbers, show me the data. And I guess what are some of the biggest checks you've seen or big like surprises that you're like, holy crap, this 22-year-old kid had $1 million tax return? Has there been some like big ones or some like ones that you're just like, wow, this guy drives a nice car, but he's broke?
There's a lot of those ones.
Is there?
Oh, yeah. There's more that I would like to count that flaunt the money. And we talked about this in the last podcast. They go buy the nicest, newest car or the nicest, newest toys, or they're always posting about their social media where they've been. And then I get the 1099 and I think, God, I make like twice as much as you, and I know I can't afford that stuff, so I don't know how you are.
That's so interesting. I want to dive deep into this.
We can dive into it. I think it's fun. I think the biggest shock for me, I was a new accountant at the firm that I used to work for, and a client came in that I was helping prepare his tax returns at the time. He was a W-2, so he's not in door-to-door, but this was the biggest shocker for me. And I think this is where my kind of mindset about money shifted at this point. He walked in, he handed me his W-2, and this guy had rental portfolio, he had investments, he was really well-rounded from a financial standpoint. And he walked in and he slapped his W-2 on the desk. I looked at it and it was $1.5 million. He paid more money in federal taxes than most people I know make in a year.
Wow.
And at that moment I was like, there's so many opportunities to make $1, and you can make a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my shock moment. Again, there are some guys that walk into my office and they do sales and I go, wow, and I have nothing to say but congratulations. Like, that is awesome.
Yeah, wherever you are.
You go bust your butt for 4 months, or if you're in solar, you go bust your butt for a year and you make that amount of money, like, congratulations.
Do you ever feel... I feel like, so today I read a book in the book called The Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. Mm-hmm. And the chapter that I was reading was called Comparison.
Yeah.
And it talks about, you can compare up or you could compare down.
Yeah.
And we get in this trap of envy, jealousy, comparison. And it was interesting because she's like, why don't we use words like admire or reverence instead of irreverence? So it's like I have a reverence for that. And she's like, if you could change your paradigm to be a little bit more like I admire or I reverence or, some respect for that versus comparing or judging. Because, if I was an accountant and I see the dude with $1 million, it'd be easy to be like, F you, like, you're cheap and you won't even write me my $500 check to file your taxes or whatever, or...
Well, when I first started out, I never did door-to-door. I served a church mission, so I did plenty of door-to-door. You know how that goes. I never did door-to-door in the sense that I sold, like, a service or a product. But I look at some guys and I think, oh, you made that much money, and I don't know. You've been around me long enough. I feel like I'm a decent enough salesman. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm a good communicator and I have good people skills. And sometimes when I first started, it was discouraging knowing what I was making, and then seeing some Yahoo come in and make like 5 times the amount that I did, who's 3 years younger. And I thought, God, if you can go make that, I will be the first to say that I don't know that I would want to go out and sell. Now I know I can't. 2 kids, wife. I can't go out and sell. I could, but. When I first started, I was like, it was envy. It was like, it was almost a little now admitting it, it's a little embarrassing that I even had those thoughts. But now I look at it as a client comes into my office and I know how much they made from the hustle, the grind, and it's like, dude, like I'm excited for you,
Yeah, good
like
job.
awesome. What can we do now? I'm like, okay, now what can we do to, how
Invest
much?
it
Yeah,
and save
where can
it
we
and-
put it, and how much taxes can we save? And that's kind of where my thinking goes, and I think that's kind of the value add that I've shifted to, because again, there's a million ways to make a buck, so that's kind of what I've shifted to. But I think it's key.
So there's like a relationship everyone has with money, and it's interesting, like the guy that goes and makes, let's say, 70 grand, yet he's driving a Tesla, he's going on all these excursions,
Yeah.
and like you said, you're like, I make twice as much or whatever that is. Yeah, can't afford what he's doing. I don't have a Tesla.
Well,
I don't,
okay,
like-
so let me put this into perspective too. I could afford that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, it's a relationship to money.
Exactly. I choose not to afford that.
Yes.
That and the only reason I do this, so here's an example, and this is kind of a win for me in the last little bit. About 18 months ago, I took $2,500 out of our checking account, out of our savings account, and I put an earnest money deposit on a piece of real estate. We didn't really have the wherewithal 18 months ago to do that. I was putting everything I had back into the business. I was taking the least amount of money I could. My wife was working, and McKenna, she was ticked. She was so mad that I'd taken $2,500 out, and it was a calculated risk for me. I ran the numbers. I knew what the investment was going to be, but I put it into this piece of real estate. We're under contract right now to sell that piece of real estate. It took about 9 months for it to be built, so we've held on to it 9 months. Every month since we bought the condo, we cash flowed about $800. So 800 times 9, I mean, we're $7,200 in monthly in cash flow total, and now we're selling that piece of property for about $160,000 more than what I bought it for. But again, a great investment. If you need any help, let me know, because I have a couple different avenues exactly that are going to play out like this. But my thinking is, okay, comparing it back to your parable, I can buy those things. I could drive a nicer truck than I drive. But yeah, I could take that $150,000 and we could travel, we could buy a nicer home, we could buy nicer clothes. I might be able to afford some hair care product to grow my hair back out or something like that. But I'm taking that $150,000 and I'm investing it into 3 other businesses, some franchises. I'm investing it into another 2 rental properties. Like, I'm not taking it and putting it into my bank. And that's the same thing I do with my own money. Money is an idea. You said money, people have relationships with money. Money is an idea. And whatever your idea about money is correct. There's not that some people walk into my office and there's not a whole lot that I can do to help you because of your idea. There are other people that walk into my office, and because of their idea about money or what money is, the possibilities are endless.
I love that. Money is an idea. It makes me think of a guy, I was hanging out with this like 2 weeks ago, and just like met him, and I was like, so what do you do? And he's like, oh man, I didn't go to college. I got a crazy killer job as a mechanic, and it pays just so much more than I would have made if I would have gone to college.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how
much are you making? Where can I sign you up?
Yeah, I was like, really? Like, okay. And he's like, yeah, dude, it's like $36 an hour. It's crazy. And I was like, his idea of crazy money was $36 an hour. And I was like, he's 27.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like he was that young. Like, but I was like, money is an idea. And the idea to him to make $36 an hour was like mind blowing. And I was like, it all came from where he came from, what his perception was,
his background,
what he needs maybe. He's like, I got more money than I know what to do with.
So that even taking this one step further, going back to what you said like 2 or 3 times ago, with the book you were reading in the chapter, you can always have that sort of envy. You can always sort of have that, and this is a lesson that I learned. This is something that I will never forget that my dad taught me, because I was to a point where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and he said you can look at the moon and the stars and the sun, and that's you should set your sights on the moon and the stars and the sun, but don't you ever forget that there's always someone that has less than you.
Yeah.
Right. And so going back to that, and again, money is an idea. For some people, $36 an hour is
Unbelievable.
Oh yeah. And I don't think it. I mean, I don't think
and
that's bad.
So I hit up this, I was talking to this friend, and we were just texting, and she was like, yeah, and I was telling her, I was like, I just don't want people to date me because of money. And we were talking about money, and I was like, you know, it's a scary place being single and like having women that are like, oh, this guy's going to just provide. And I told her, I was like, oh,
where are we going on our next trip?
Yeah, like where's the next excursion? What are you going to buy me? I want to wear the fancy cool stuff and you pay for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dude, I am trying to hide under a rock and I'm a dork. So, you know, I was like, da-da-da-da. And she's like, she then hits me back with like the most kick to the nuts. And she's like, and I was like, you didn't respond. Like, I don't think you understood or like read my text the right way.
But it's exactly
what I needed. And I was like, bet. She's like, just because people have an idea or choose to live at a certain income doesn't mean they're less than or more than, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, no, that's not what I was trying to get at, but you're right. Like,
Yeah.
I would 100% agree. And I think sometimes whatever that idea of income is, sometimes in that comparing mind, the ego comes in and says, if you don't make X, you're not worthy of, or you're less than. And it's like, what if the guy making $60,000, or what if the guy that wants to sell 100 deals instead of 300 deals, or what if it's like, that's by design, like that's by their idea of I'm have enough, I'm doing what I'm choosing to do.
Right.
And that was such an interesting paradigm. And I was like, it's easy for us to always feel chasing not enough, no matter where we get. I'm listening to Will Smith's book right now, or I just finished it. Super good. And he went through this. He was always chasing the next big title. He had 7 or 8 back-to-back top number 1 producing movies or whatever. And for him, it was like, if I can't ever feel like I made it enough, then how am I supposed to give to the people below me or my family? And he's like, it bleeds into my relationships. It bleeds into my my kids. It bleeds into everything.
Your personal health, your mental health. It does.
Because he always felt like there was another top hit to get and more money to have.
But I think that people like yourself or myself and a lot of people in the door-to-door space are like that. They are go-getters. They want the next best thing. They want the next biggest paycheck. They want to succeed in life. They want to have good investments. They want to accomplish these things. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think you have to have controls.
Yeah.
You know, and again, maybe a bridge into accounting, but these controls are what help you with your organization and time management and health. Not from a maybe physical standpoint, but also from a money standpoint.
So obviously dealing with accounting, you're dealing with controls all the time. Books, financial budgets, you know, statistics of profit and losses, all that kind of stuff. There's the element of like the spreadsheets and the profit and loss reports. And then you said, I think of controls, I think of levers. And if the controls tell me when to do things, then it helps take my emotional buying, my emotional world out of this a little bit. It gives me some freedom to be like, dude, spend a little bit. You made good money. Or, like, invest a little bit more in this. Like,
right. So can I use you? Can I use you as an example?
Yeah.
So when we acquired Sam as a client, what was the status of your financial reporting?
It was a shit show.
And so you talk about the levers and I talked about calculated risks. When we brought you on as a client, you couldn't do it. He couldn't do any of that because he had. It's like using Google Maps. This is an analogy that I've started to use. If Google Maps had no data and you needed to get somewhere, would you be better off having no data or better off having incorrect data?
No data.
Absolutely, because you can start from ground zero. So when we acquired you as a client, you had data, but it was incorrect data.
Oh, and I knew it, so I never even wanted to look at it.
And doing that didn't allow you to make calculated risks or allowed you to make business decisions that would affect a positive outcome in your business. So you had no idea where I don't think you had an idea where you wanted to go. And even if you did, you had no idea how to get there.
No.
Right? You would have been better off you would have been better off looking at the cash accounts every day in the bank accounts and just saying, let's go, rather than looking at your financial data.
No, and that's what I did. I was like, well, the bank's got money in it. And
So having that analysis, and I always say there are 3 stories that your financials need to tell. And that might be your business financials, that might be your rental financials, that might be your personal financials. Those 3 financial stories are to the IRS, and we want that story to make it look like we make as few dollars as possible, because that's what's going to get taxed. We need a financial to tell to creditors and lenders, and we need those financials to look beefy and healthy, because we want to have a good lending ability to go purchase or invest or do this, that, or the other, right? Mm-hmm. And then we need a set of financials for the business owner or for your personal financials to tell you where you've been, where you are, and where you're going.
Yeah.
You know, so going back to kind of those levers or controls, those are the 3 stories you kind of have to set up, why you need to set them up, and the how is just figuring out where you want to go. Now we look at your financials. I've got a great team. I don't take any credit for this because my accounting manager and my bookkeepers are phenomenal, right? But you look at your financials now, you know exactly what's been done. You know exactly where you are. Today you could look at your accounting and know exactly what's going on in your business. And you could say at any dime or any moment, I want to pivot and do X, Y, or Z. And with your financials, we can tell you exactly how to get there.
Well, we did. I mean, I'll give you 2
We are.
Yeah, it's like, I'll give you 2 good examples. And this is like if for a business owner, even just a rep that's making good money.
Even one making $60,000 or $70,000 a year, it's important.
Yeah, you're like, okay, what am I spending money on? And what can I be spending more money on? So I was always so scared to take money out of the business. Like for me, I had made enough money in investments that I had always just kept playing with the money in investments. I let my investment money keep making me more money, and my business money was my play money in the business, and funded a little bit of my lifestyle, right? And so I started looking at it, and we categorized. I have like 7 different categories. I have online university, I have events, I have coaching, I have a consulting, I have like merchandise.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I do so many different things that are so different. Like me going to host a sales summit just once a year is so different than even Door to Door Con that has its own financial piece, right? I have 2 software companies. I have, and so the confusing element of the books is hard. I had no idea what was going on. Once I got everything in a percent allocation, then a profit percentage by product or classification, I then started to put my 2022 outlook in line in November and December last year, and I was like, wow, I'm going to cut out this, and this, because it had a very low profit margin, and I'm going to look at the profit margin here, and look how much revenue we did and how easy that was, and so I'm going to put way more gas on this. And it's been so freeing to just be like, I felt that, but now I see it. And so we took down consulting. We just said, I don't need a team of 10 experts traveling all over the place. It just is stupid. So no offense to you guys, but I got rid of a lot of that. And then I said, I'm going to put more, I have excess cash in this department. And so we started developing more software because we knew that there'd be a big ROI in 3 to 5 years by putting more into this technology, right? And then we said, hey, these events are always going to be profitable, so let's just put more gas on this. And it was just so freeing to know. And then also, I can take some money home. As a business owner, it's the weirdest thing. You feel guilty to your employees. You feel guilty to,
You really do. A good employer, and I feel very blessed because I have the ability to fund other people's lifestyles through my efforts, and that's, I think, the ultimate goal. But really what it comes down to is I feel guilty when I take money out of the business. My wife hates it because she's like, hey, you're doing well. Let's go on a vacation. You can go on a vacation. I'm like, I can't take that money out of the business.
It's like, what if I need to do it? But it's when you have controls, you're like, it's time for distribution. I just took $200,000 and just put it into an investment because I was also cash sitting in the account. It's kind of dumb. So I was like, well, let's kind of move this stuff around. So anyway, so
I think where this is important to note, because the people that listen to this are going to be on a large scale, right? You're going to have a lot of people like you who own businesses and maybe do or do not have that control or that setup, and there's ways that we can help with that. But on the other end of the spectrum, you're also going to have maybe the first or second year rep, or the person that's wanting to know how to get into door to door and only might be making $20,000 to $80,000 a year. Like, the transfer from this to that is not that big of a difference from an accounting standpoint. This just has more controls than that.
Yeah.
You know, and going back to the kid that makes $70,000 that can afford X, Y, or Z, and I choose not to afford it. The only difference is I have my controls, and someone like that typically, I'm not going to say always, but typically does not.
Yeah.
You know, they have no idea how much money they're making on a monthly basis. They have no idea how much money they're spending on a monthly basis. They have no idea where they're putting their money. And I think that's the difference between A to Z, where you were and where you are now.
Yeah.
And the difference between someone that is starting out, blows all their money, and doesn't file taxes because they're scared and owe a lot, versus someone who gets everything set up correctly, organizes everything correctly, and then gets to Z a lot quicker than that other person, you know.
So here's a question: how do I change my idea around money? So, like, think about it. I come from a certain background. Like, I grew up in Park City. Like, and it's interesting. And I'm saying this not to judge me. I'm just like, this is my story.
Yeah.
This is what I was born in. And I was out with somebody the other day, and they were like, "You're the most coveted, you know, white male. Like, everyone hates you, right?" And I was like, it's true. Like, if you were in South Carolina and you were in a impoverished neighborhood, they're kind of like, well, you're privileged. You grew up in Park City, Utah, with an entrepreneurial dad that, you know, here's some opportunity.
You had what you wanted and needed in life, and
but yet he made me work. Like, nothing he's never given me a handout. Like, I never was like, oh, I'm a trust fund kid that got, like, no, my dad was like cheap, shopped at the DI, said you had two legs. So, like, luckily he taught me good work skills. But what's interesting, my idea of money is I was hanging out at all my friends' houses that are all probably now today worth $10 million. Like, I grew up playing basketball in their basketball courts.
In their basement.
Yeah. Like, that was what I lived in. Where most people obviously didn't have that idea of they never even been in a house like that. Where it was like, that was my street I lived on. So that helped me kind of see a bigger vision of money. If I didn't come from that, how does one go about adapting their idea and their relationship to money?
I think, well, obviously a lot of it has to do with how, this is my opinion, right? Dr. Slack, if you will.
Help us out, Dr. Slack.
Right? But I think it has to do with, one, how you're raised, where you're raised, and the circumstances behind that, because it does play a big part of that, you know. And fortunately or unfortunately, I can't change my circumstances, and I can't change your circumstances. Yeah. What I can change are the variables that I plug into that circumstance, though. You know, I'm to a point now where, like, for example, I was talking to my parents last week about some of the things that I'm doing with this $150,000. And my mom looks at me, and don't get me wrong, like, my mom and dad, I love them. They same as you. Like, I never wanted for anything. But you better believe on a Tuesday and Thursday night, after I'm done with homework at 8 o'clock, my parents had a cleaning business, and I was cleaning toilets. I was vacuuming, you know, and that's how I had to do that, or else I could not play competitive sports because we couldn't afford them. Maybe we could have afforded them, but my parents wouldn't have paid for them, right? Yeah. Anyways, we were having a conversation about this $150,000, and my mom looks at me dead as can be and says, "Doesn't that scare you?" And it kind of took me off guard. One, because no, it doesn't scare me. They're calculated risks like we've talked about. But two, my perception of money has changed so much so that money for me is a tool. It's kind of a game. It's something that I enjoy. And one thing that I've always was taught was it's only money you can make. It's not the highest priority. You know, what are my highest priorities? God, my family, my wife, my kids, you know, the relationships and the experiences that we have. Money is just a byproduct of those things.
Yes.
So how can people shift or change their idea of money? Well, one, I think the education behind money is a big factor. I think people need to become more educated about money. I think people need to invest more in themselves and the skills that they possess rather than investing in things
material things.
before, and that might not even be material. I'm even talking about stocks or real estate, whatever that might be. I think they need to invest more in that, because the compounding effect of your skills, your knowledge base, and your abilities are so much greater and have a greater impact on making more money than a rental property that's going to cash flow $200 a month.
I'll use it in a good example. Okay, so yesterday I did a training in Dallas. We had about 400 people show up. I did it for free. The reason being because they already had paid a ticket to go to this other event, right?
Yeah, no, totally.
And I was like, well, I'll host a little event for anybody who wants to come. And so interesting. The guy that shows up, I'm looking at this guy, and he's like, I asked him, I said, what's your goal a month? And he'd been doing sales, solar for, I think, like 2-3 years. He's like, if I get to a month, I'm stoked. And I looked down the hall, or down the row, and I said, hey, you, what's your goal? Knowing that she's good. I said, what's your goal? Or how many did you do yesterday, is what I asked her. She's like, oh, I did 3 yesterday. I kind of teed myself up.
Yeah.
I knew that she was on a blitz, and I knew she was good. And I kind of was like, oh, really? 3 yesterday? Oh, what's your goal a month? Is it 2? And he looks at her and he's like
how,
dumbfounded.
See, and it's
dumbfounded.
It's no different than the person making $36 an hour that's stoked with $36 an hour, and the person that's making $1,000 an hour. Again, that person they can only do as good as they know.
As they know.
So that's why I say, hey, you got to expound that, and I think the possibilities are endless once you do.
And so by him investing in himself, showing up to an event, putting the time and energy in him, put him in a position of proximity. And I think we underestimate the power of, like, me having my best friends all have basketball courts in their homes, and growing up with their dads, going to scout camps with them, having conversations with all my uncles. My uncle owns advocates. One is a big insurance guy. One's a big lawyer. One's a judge. Like, I look at my uncles. I look at my dad. I look at my friends' dads. And I was like, I just happen to always be around where I could sit there and pick the brains and be in the room. I had a seat in the room due to proximity. Yeah. So this dude shows up to the room, had a seat in that room because he paid the money. Yeah. He said, I'm going to come to this thing. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to invest in myself. Put him as a seat next to the other people investing in themselves that had done 3, and all of a sudden that environment proximity up-leveled him, and now hopefully he's like, oh my gosh, I'm a piece of crap. I do 2 a month. She does 3 a day. What am I doing?
So, okay, another example. So, a couple weeks ago, I was asked to go give a presentation to a mastermind group. And you know about this, right?
Happened to be at my house.
Sam's house, of all places. I show up and I go, oh, this is familiar.
I Airbnb my house, and they had hosted the event at my house as an Airbnb.
Anyways, the guy that asked me to do it, he didn't give me like any pretense as far as what to talk about. So I had no idea that, it was kind of intimate. There was maybe 20 of us there. I had no idea their backgrounds, their businesses, how they made their money. And so I was kind of lost as to what I should present. I presented on day 2, so day 1 gave me a good opportunity to kind of fill out the room. On day 1, there was a couple there that presented. Their business kind of blew up kind of overnight, if you will, the last year or 2. And I guess that's not overnight, but quickly. And now they're doing, maybe $1 million in sales, which is huge for them. They've got a killer product, but they get up and they've never done a mastermind. They'd never been around people that were as high level as they were. There were some really big hitters there. And they started to give a presentation, and they started to tell us what their business plan was at this mastermind group. And if you've never been to a mastermind group, I highly encourage you to go to a mastermind group, because the whole idea behind a mastermind group is, hey, you might grill me, but it's out of love because I can reach the next level. And you're going to show me how to reach the next level. They started to tell us their business plan, and right away I raised my hand and I said, I don't apologize for this, but I think your idea is stupid. They wanted to bring on outside money, bring on investors, and really, going back, they didn't have any data. They had no idea how to track sales. They had no idea how to track data. They made $1 million on a fluke, if you will. They weren't capturing any advertising or marketing or clicks or anything but they needed the money. And so I raised my hand and I said, I think that's a stupid idea. The guy sitting next to me has built multiple 10 and 20 and 30 million dollar companies, put multiple products in major stores like GNC, and this was a health and fitness product. And he started to talk to him. Well, they'd never put themselves in that position, and so the guy started to shoot back. at this other gentleman sitting next to me. And he just said, no, that's stupid. Well, come to find out, as I'm giving my tax presentation, the gentleman that was sitting next to me said, as I'm giving some of these advices, he goes, how do I save on taxes if I'm going to personally make $10 million this year? And everyone's like jaw dropped. They had no idea who this person was. They had no idea he was going to make that much money, right? So I started to give him some ideas on tax strategies. But this other couple, right after we kind of got into this, came right up to him and said, what do I need to do to increase my business? You know, so
Yeah.
again, maybe this whole idea of money is just, you got to put yourself in situations where you can expound that idea.
Yeah. Keep breaking your own idea. And I continue to do that. Like, blows my mind. Like, I'm in masterminds. I host masterminds.
Yeah.
My own mastermind inspires me. I'm always like, dang it, I need
And
to
it
be better.
should.
It should.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time. So, Brady, if you guys are interested in getting accounting, bookkeeping, tax strategy,
Payroll,
hit up DDD Tax Strategies, Brady Slack. More than happy. He's a great, I will refer him all day. They've changed and helped us a tremendous amount. And I appreciate you being on the show, man.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you need any help, let me know.
What's the website?
So go to highcountryfinance.com. And if you need to, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at @TheBradySlack.
Okay. Peace out.
Thanks.
See you guys.